Not even a single person in Washington expected that Aaron Burr would become the kind of man whose name would echo through courtrooms and river towns as a synonym for conspiracy. In the first decade of the 19th century, Burr, once Vice President of the United States, once a titan of federal politics, slid from Capitol salons to the lonely rivers of the West. The nation itself was young and brittle. The Mississippi Valley was a patchwork of settlers, speculators, and foreign interests, and into that messy borderland, a secret scheme began to unfold. After the fateful duel with Alexander Hamilton in 1804, Burr's political career lay in ruins. He retreated from the east, traveling into the territories of Kentucky, Ohio, and the complex borderlands of the lower Mississippi. On the Ohio River, an Irish exile named Harmon Blennerhassett offered his island estate as a staging ground. Military men, land speculators, and desperate frontiersmen converged. At the center stood Burr, and one man whose duplicity would become crucial: General James Wilkinson, the senior American military officer in the West. The conspiracy's contours were murky, but dangerous. Burr talked of carving out a new domain from the Trans-Appalachian West, perhaps an independent republic, perhaps an expedition to seize New Orleans and parts of Spanish-held territory to the south. He courted investors, sought recruits, and negotiated with local leaders. He did not move in the open. Meetings were held at night, orders were sent by courier, and Blennerhassett's estate became a secret rendezvous where plans and supplies gathered under cover of hospitality. What transformed rumor into scandal was betrayal. James Wilkinson, long suspected by some of secret dealings with Spanish authorities and prone to self-interest, initially played along. But the general's ambivalence turned to action. He sent reports to President Thomas Jefferson and others accusing Burr of levying war against the United States. Wilkinson's denunciation, coupled with letters, intercepted movements, and witnesses whose stories tied Burr to armed preparations, provided the federal government with the evidence it needed to act. In 1807, Burr was arrested and transported to Richmond to answer charges of treason, the gravest possible accusation against an American citizen. The trial was a national spectacle. President Jefferson, convinced of guilt, denounced what he saw as a plot to dismember the Union. Newspapers across the country thundered with conjecture. The prosecution painted Burr as the architect of a military scheme to seize New Orleans and detach the West.
We strike at the barracks first. Synchronize your movements. No mistakes.
The defense argued that talk and planning without an overt act of war could not meet the constitutional definition of treason. Chief Justice John Marshall presided over the courtroom drama. The constitutional question at the heart of the case was precise and historic: what constituted levying war against the United States? The government marshaled testimony about gatherings on Blennerhassett Island, about men parading as volunteers, about payments and signals. Yet proof of an actual uprising or armed assault was thin. Marshall, fearless, exacting, ruled that intention and conspiracy alone did not suffice. The Constitution required an overt act, witnessed by two persons. Burr was acquitted. The verdict did not repair his reputation. He left the country for several years, his name stained by suspicion and ignominy. James Wilkinson, who had betrayed him, remained a figure of controversy. Later, revelations would underscore the general's murky ties with Spanish officials and his opportunistic career. Harmon Blennerhassett's estate was ruined. He lost everything in a storm of legal and social backlash. The Burr conspiracy exposed raw nerves in a young republic. It posed stark questions about federal power, frontier politics, and the fragile loyalties that could be tempted by land, opportunity, and ambition. It tested the Constitution's limits and produced a landmark legal standard for treason that would shape American jurisprudence. In the end, the plot's most enduring legacy was not an independent country or a military victory, but a cautionary tale. How personal ruin, clandestine schemes, and the shifting loyalties of men like Aaron Burr and James Wilkinson could threaten the unity of a nation still finding itself. This true story of duels, river islands, secret councils, and a courtroom that clarified the law of treason remains one of the Republic's most dramatic conspiracies, a reminder that the fault lines of history are often drawn in private along a riverbank, long before the world learns their names.